So tonight is our print night, and because of our situation, we're just going to continue this digitally. And so you're ready, David, for our first image?
Yeah, I think so. I was going to do a share a screen here, and now I got to figure out how to do it again.
Okay. Down at the bottom should be a share screen option.
Yeah, there is. Share screen. It says basic. It says whiteboard, Safari, post attendee, Zoom. How weird is this? Man.
There you go.
That looks like the whiteboard. You actually want to share your desktop.
It says I can't start screen sharing while the other participant is sharing.
John Cleek's screen is up.
Yeah.
Whoever the host is can also cancel that.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, David. Go try it.
And then Dorothy, you might do a hard mute on everybody too.
Yeah, I was going to tell you that I'll mute everybody here.
Sorry, I'll stay out of it.
No, you're a good coach.
Yeah. Good reminders, Tamara.
I do this every day.
Yep, exactly.
Hello,
Like
David Palmer.
Better you than me.
Yeah.
Okay, David, you need to unmute so that we can hear you. Okay, there you go.
All right.
And
So
then can you share your screen?
Yeah, let me start from the beginning. When I hit share screen, I see basic, whiteboard, Safari, post attendee, and Zoom.
Well, where is your Lightroom?
Well, I have it open.
It's not showing up.
It doesn't show up as something that I can share. Advanced. Files. I only have a choice of basic, advanced. Oh, here we go. Apparently having Lightroom minimized doesn't make it available. So I had brought it up to the front, and now can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and if I hit, and I think that gives us about the best view of the picture for.
Yep. Okay, so our first entry for tonight in the print general color is, oh, Ref.
Okay, well, I thought this was a really nice example of some photojournalism. I like the presentation here. The two images showing the offense and then the, are you kidding, not me, reaction put together works very well. And I think the image quality is very good. Probably the only thing that is a little bit of a distraction to me in that the referee appears to be looking away from the player rather than toward her, but that's a very subtle issue. Anyway, I scored this 3, 4, and 3.
Okay, hold on. Oh, Ref by Maxie Adams, 10 points. Next is Be Happy.
Okay. One of the things there's obviously an issue since this is a print night judging, and I'm not able to look at prints. And of course, there is a difference between seeing a transmitted light image on a computer screen and seeing a print. There are issues like the print surface texture, many things that affect what a print looks like compared to something on a computer screen. But anyway, I found this to be a good composition, and nice bright colors, interesting subject, and I think it's handled quite well. So I scored this one 3, 4, and 3.
Be Happy by Kim Barbie, 10 points. Next one is Glacier Waterfall.
Okay, well, I find this a really pleasing scene and really nice composition with the leading lines taking us into some very interesting subject matter in the background. The contrast in the foreground really pulls the eye into that first and then leads you up through the waterfall into the rest of the scenery. And I think this very pleasing image. I scored it 4, 4, and 4.
Glacier Waterfall by Steve Whitaker, 12 points. I Got Dinner.
I love this golden hour light. Really adds to the very high impact of this picture. On the technical side, there's a little significant amount of noise going on in the background. Not enough to ruin the picture, but enough to be very noticeable. And I scored this 4, 5, and 4.
I Got Dinner by Don Burnell, 13 points. Woohoo! Next is I Live in a Flower.
Okay, this is a very pleasing image with quite a lot of subtlety. A lot of it's out of focus, but that really only serves to emphasize the parts that are in sharp focus, particularly around the one water drop. And I like the square or nearly square composition. I think there's nothing distracting. It's a very pleasing image. And I scored this 4, 4, and 4.
I Live in a Flower by Lynn Nordhagen, 12 points. Onward, Men.
Okay, this is a nice action shot. A lot to hold your attention here. Things that I find distracting, and I understand the difficulty of getting a perfect composition in this sort of shooting situation. It's really good fortune when you do. But this figure that's face is covered up in the background and fairly bright is, to me, a little distracting. I'm not sure if just bringing it down tonally would help. It would also create a problem of making it move toward tonally blending with the foreground horse. So that could create its own problems. My opinion is that there's maybe just a little excessive edge burning in that the color tends to shift from tan to almost orange or burnt orange on the edges, which could be something from just pushing the edge burning a little bit. Still, I think it's a really good picture, and I scored it 4, 4, and 3.
Onward, Men by Don Burnell, 11 points. Palouse Duster.
Okay, I think this is a really nice action shot. Of course, I never grow tired of seeing those Palouse hills. if I ever do, it's probably time to just close the lid and put me away. But they're just beautiful. And then with the vapors floating over the top of that and the plane flying up right in the foreground, I found this very satisfying and scored it 4, 4, and 4.
Palouse Duster by John Lepper, 12 points. Sheriff.
Okay, this is a nice kind of casual portrait image. It's a pretty straightforward composition. I think the expression on the face is interesting, and that improves the impact of it. And I think technically it's done quite well. I scored this 3, 4, and 4.
Sheriff by Laurie Carlton Smith, 11 points. The Black Bridge.
Okay. Spent quite a lot of time looking at this one, thinking about it. It's got some issues in terms of the realism of the clouds that are maybe not entirely to my taste, but nonetheless, it is quite striking, I think, with a good, strong composition. I might like to see a little more shadow separation in some of these areas. It does, but again, that's quite far away and not a main feature of the image. As a stark silhouette, it works quite well. And I scored it 4, 4, and 3.
Black Bridge by Laurie Pence, 11 points. And our last entry in general color is Time for a Break.
Okay, well, compositionally, I think this is pretty straightforward. It's certainly good. And I think the presentation is intriguing on this. I would be fascinated to see what this looked like as a print. I think the impact is quite high, primarily because of the brilliant colors against the dark green felt. And I really like the way it's handled technically. All of the roundness is there in the balls. Love the little highlights from the point source lights. Look really nice on those without anything breaking up anything we didn't want to see. It's a very nice image, and I scored it 3, 4, and 4.
Time for a Break by Terry Hamilton, 11 points. Moving on to general monochrome. Our first entry is It's Hot.
Okay, well, I think this is composed really quite well. But there's something going on with the tonal distribution that I think takes away from the impact of the image a little bit. I think it needs more mid-tone grays in some of the, particularly in the main figure of the animal. There's a lot of really dark and really light and some mid-tone gray, but not much. And I'm thinking a different tonal distribution. You could put a curves layer on it and play with it and see if something works out a little better. But it's a very interesting photograph. And I scored it 4, 3, and 3.
It's Hot by Don Burnell, 10 points. Waterfalls.
Okay, I think this is a good composition. I think part of the impact of it comes from the swirly painting technique that's been applied to it. Not necessarily entirely my cup of tea, but I can appreciate that it's a pleasing look. And I think it's been done quite well for this image. It may, for my taste, it may be a little overdone right here in the foreground. What's going on back here is working very well, and all of this, and it's just right in this area that might be just a little pushed a little more than I would prefer, but that's just me. And I think technically it's all very well done. I scored this 3, 4, and 4.
Waterfalls by Don Burnell, 11 points. So that's, we're done with the general. We're now moving on to our subject color. And our first entry is delicate to touch.
Okay, and the subject here, on some of these I will discuss this a little bit, that the subject is supposed to be texture. And there are a few instances where I don't really think that the subject is texture. This particular picture, I think, needed to have everything below this area right here cropped off. I think these bright lines and this bright color is all distracting from the idea of these petals, and everything there. Ignore the telephone. But yeah, I think a much tighter crop on this would serve this very well. Excuse me, 1 second. We're closed. Anyway, I think the impact is good, and I think the technique, and what I really admire in this picture is the beautiful subtle textures captured in the white petals, because that's tricky to do. Getting that really soft white to hold on to that kind of texture throughout the entire surface is a good trick, and it's well done here. I scored this one 2, 3, and 4.
Delicate to Touch by Sister Madonna, 9 points. Forest Foliage.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and cite this one as what I think is, this is truly a picture where the subject is the texture. Yes, there are leaf shapes, but it is the texture that this picture is all about. And I think compositionally it's excellent, and wonderful impact, and technically it's done extremely well. About the only thing I could say is maybe this little bright spot over here in the edge might have been toned down to match some of the other tonalities and not pull your eye over to that corner quite so much. That's the only thing I can find to say that I don't care for about this. I scored this one 4, 5, and 5.
Forest Foliage by Lori Carlton Smith, 14 points. High Pass Textures.
Okay, I like the composition very much here. I think the picture has a very good impact. It's possible that at a different time of day, the same scene would have a little more, depending on how the light plays across. And I think technically it's executed wonderfully. It looks very realistic, very photographically real. I'm very impressed with that. And I scored this one 4, 4, and 5.
High Pass Textures by Steve Whitaker, 13 points. Mother Nature's textures.
Okay, well, I think the composition here is straightforward and good. Um, it's an interesting subject, and that gives it some impact point. Technically, I'm not sure, but it appears to me that it's tonally a little flat here, but maybe that's just the nature of the subject. It doesn't appear to be significantly overexposed, so I'm not quite sure what I'm seeing there. Maybe that's just super creamy in that area. Anyway, I scored this one 3, 4, and 3.
Mother Nature's Textures by Lori Pence, 10 points. Old Barn Detail.
Okay, I think everything about this picture is at least above average. It's a very simple subject, but once again, it's true to the subject, textures. That's what the picture is about, is the textures of this weathered wood. And I think it's been captured and presented extremely well here, and I scored it 4, 4, and 4.
Old Barn Detail by Maxie Adams, 12 points. Outer Space.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure what this is. Could be, it's probably water under ice. I've seen broken glass make similar looking things, but this is probably water under ice. Anyway, compositionally, I'm a little puzzled by having such a strong line here at the bottom run right up to the edge. I think that's, but of course, I have no idea what's out of the frame that may have been reason not to include a little more space around that. It's a good abstract feel to it. I think it has good impact and is certainly executed well from a technical standpoint. I scored it 3, 4, and 4.
Outer Space by Catherine Alexander, 11 points. Over the Rainbow.
Okay, so now we get to one of the images that I don't think is about texture. You know, where I don't think texture is the subject here. Yes, there are textures in the rocks and hills and things like that. But to me, if I just walked up and looked at this, texture would not be the first thing I thought about, or even the second or maybe third. So from my point of view, I probably wouldn't consider this a subject picture. However, I'll go ahead and score it as a picture. And say that I think compositionally it's above average. It has very high impact, beautiful light, and is done technically very well. And I scored it 4, 4, and 4.
Over the Rainbow by Terry Hamilton, 12 points.
Okay.
Peeling.
Well, this certainly is a subject of texture. I think the composition is good. I don't really find something that, maybe the closest thing to a central point of interest that draws me in would be this area right here with this little bit of unusual tone from the rest of it. It's a good, satisfying image, and I scored it 3, 4, and 4.
Healing by Tim Lesser, 11 points. Psychedelic.
Okay, well, this is an image that really grabbed me when I first looked at it. It's just rich with textures and brilliant colors. The only thing that might be a bit of a distraction is having these bright reds on the edges. And I'm not sure, you know, how much subduing those a little bit it's fairly easy with contemporary software to select a color and then just reduce the saturation and or brightness of that color a little bit. So maybe it didn't pull you out quite so much as that does. This area in the main composition is just superb. Fairly shallow depth of field, but it works well. And I scored this one 4, 4, and 4.
Psychedelic by Elaine Guidoni, 12 points. Rebar Rust.
Okay, I think this a good composition, nice diagonal lines on it. It has very, very shallow depth of field, even to the point that some of the end of this doesn't look particularly crisp, and certainly goes way out of focus back in here. Again, a good study in texture. So there's that. I scored this one 3, 4, and 3.
Rebar Rust by Tamara McGee, 10 points. Shrinking Paint.
Okay, well, this one grabbed me good when I first saw it, and I sit and look at it, and it keeps looking like a map to me of some kind, which makes it very interesting. And I think this has an outstanding composition with a really strong shape up in here and then supporting shapes below it. Nice division of 1/3 and 2/3 for the strong and weak parts. And it's done extraordinarily well technically. Super crisp and beautiful tones. And I scored this one 4, 5, and 5.
Shrinking Paint by Tim Lesser, 14 points. Swirl.
Okay. Not sure if I'm looking at the edge of some corrugated cardboard or a stack of rye crackers or just what it is, but in any case, it makes an interesting pattern and I think qualifies as a photograph of texture. And I scored this one 3, 3, and 3.
Swirl by Ardella Carroll, 9 points. Texture Plus, That's Me.
Okay. This one is probably somewhere in the middle between being a picture with the subject of texture and a subject of something else. I mean, it's really kind of a picture of an animal that has a lot of texture on it, rather than just a detail of the fur that shows the texture. But it's a really dominant texture, so it's probably okay. As a photograph, I think it's very well done. I scored it 4, 4, and 4.
Texture Plus, That's Me by, hold on, by Dorothy Detler, 12 points. Okay, hold on a second. Sorry. Next one is White Sands Early Evening.
Spent a lot of time looking at this before I finally made my decision. It's wonderful evening light. There's actually somebody standing right back out here, which I thought about it for a long time. It really doesn't do anything to damage the image for me. it still remains very pleasing. I think it's extremely well composed with a nice balance of the different types of vegetation. This area is a bit busy, but again, in this evening light, it works very well. Wonderful leading lines going up into the background. And I scored this one 5, 5, and 5.
White Sands Early Evening by Dorothy Detler, 15 points. Good job, Dorothy. Next is Winter Texture.
Okay. This has a bit of an odd magenta cast to it, but that doesn't ruin it. I think the composition is good. As busy as it is, it I think has good impact. When it pops up in front of you, I think it looks pretty good. I would be interested to see what would happen if you would bring the shadows down a little more in this corner and put a little more contrast there. But overall, it's an interesting winter picture. Not sure if this was shot with street light providing light source or just what was going on here. The light on it looks a little strange to me, but anyway, I scored it 3, 4, and 3.
Hold on a second. Sorry, lost my place here. Winter Texture by David Powers, 10 points. Okay, next is Wolf.
Okay. I had quite a bit of trouble with the composition on this. I think everything from about here to the right could go away, and this would be stronger. The picture is quite abstract because of the way it's been processed. And as far as texture, the only real texture I see is texture as a result of the image processing, basically what looks like grain and noise. That said, I like the way the overall processing was done. I think that's very interesting, and I commend you for trying something different in processing the image. I scored this one 2, 3, and 4.
Wolf by David Powers, 9 points. All right, so we're down to our last 5 images in the subject monochrome. Our first one is Flare.
This I found to be a very pleasing image with a good strong composition, good impact, and really good technique. The shallow depth of field used here really puts the pop into some of these tiny droplets or whatever on the ends of the hairs in this flower. Just a very pleasing monochrome image, and I scored it 4, 4, and 4.
Flare by Tamara McGee, 12 points. Hands of a Carver.
Okay, well, I thought this has very good composition. I might have tightened it up just a little, but depending on how important to show this, but certainly some of this foreground could have brought us in a little closer. Everything else about this image is beautiful tonality and feeling to it. I scored this one 4, 5, and 5.
Hands of a Carver by John Lepper, 14 points. On the half shell,
Well, I think this is another excellent monochrome image. It has very good composition. It's pretty straightforward, but it works really well. It has very good impact, and I think technically it's done superbly well. And they scored it 4, 4, and 5.
on the half shell by Elaine Guidoni, 13 points. Stonehenge.
Okay. Compositionally, I'm not sure if having 2 of these portals visible is working to the best advantage. Maybe cropping the image off so that only that one is visible, or moving over a little so you're looking more down one and still showing one. I feel like there's so much image here that is a lot of text, and then you get here and you're really drawn over to the left side of this with all the bright. One of the things to keep in mind, the eye is drawn to the area of highest contrast. So that's really pulling you into this area where you have this stark black against white, really bringing you into that. And the other thing I see in this technically is a bit of flatness in the high end. And of course, this is a very contrasty subject, so taming that can be difficult at best. I'm just not sure. And it certainly does qualify as texture being the subject. Anyway, those are just my thoughts on it. I scored it 3, 4, and 3.
Stonehenge by Sister Madonna, 10 points. And our last entry in subject monochrome is Weather Beaten.
Okay, pretty straightforward composition. It has good impact. I like the slight warmth you've got in the monochrome image. I find that very satisfying. Personally, I would have darkened the top up here some and opened this area up a little bit relative to the top to kind of keep the interest down in this area. Often that can be done very subtly, but really make a big difference. I scored this one 3, 3, and 4.
Weather Beaten by John Stockham, 10 points. Okay, so that would have been our last entry for tonight, but David, there is one image that I just added right now, and this was actually my mistake from the last meeting. For some reason, this image didn't get included, but it's in general color, so you can access it on the shared drive that I have given you.
Okay, let's see.
It's in and just to be easy, I put it in the print subject monochrome. It's a general color. It's a digital general color, but I put it in the print monochrome so that it'll be easy for you to find it.
Yeah, and of course these I had all downloaded to my computer, so I'll have to get back to, got to remember which. See if I can find that email quickly.
No, it's not in the email. Or, well,
Oh, that would have the link to.
okay.
That's probably not going to be any help. Here we are, judges folder. Just give me a couple seconds here.
Sure. Yeah, it's in the judges folder, print subject monochrome is where it's at.
Okay, and then picture two birds.
Yes. And this is Be Mine.
Here it is. All right. Okay, so we're just scoring this as a non-subject
That's correct.
color picture.
Correct.
Okay, well, I very much like the composition. Really nicely, nothing really disturbs the birds at all. And yet these elements that are out of focus around in the background add a lot of interest. All of the texture of the old stump adds a lot of interest. It looks like this may have been pretty heavily cropped, perhaps, but I understand that. I do that a lot myself because often that's the way it has to be. I would score this 4 for composition, 5 for impact, and 4 for technique.
Be Mine by Alice Garland, 13 points. Okay, folks, that's it for tonight. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and we've got, if you got any questions, suggestions, or other comments.
Thank you, David.
Hey, Dennis, this is Steve.
Thank you. I have one quick comment. Anybody who went to the roping event and didn't get an email from me with Frankie Browning's email address, just either send me a quick email and I'll send you her email address. She was hoping to get some of the photos so she could share them with the ropers. And then she's thinking that there's going to be another event in October that she'll invite us to.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. No smoke, hopefully.
Green.
I have a
Hopefully.
question. Did anybody speak about Doug? I just wondered what had happened.
No,
Does
Does
anyone know?
anyone know what happened? It must have been pretty sudden.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I know a little about it. Apparently, he's been sick for some time, which
Oh,
I
really?
know fairly well, and I did not realize that. So he's had a chronic illness for a long time, and he's deteriorated over the last year. It's one of the reasons he hasn't been in the club. So he passed away on Sunday. His wife is going to use the camera club for any donations that people want to bring in. And I think Donna sent out a memo on that.
Yes, yes.
So I think very, very
She
nice
did.
of her to do that.
Yeah, very nice.
So did his illness, did it have anything to do with his throat and the way he was speaking?
No, that was
Okay.
a separate thing. No, it was something different.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing, Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you, David, for being a great judge again.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I'll unmute so you can hear me say thank you.
Also,
Okay.
Dennis, could you hold on for just a second after folks dial off here?
Sure.
Thank you, Dorothy, for all the emails too.
Yes,
Welcome.
Really
Welcome.
appreciate it.
I'll look forward to when I can see you in person again.
oh,
Like we all do.
Yes, that'll be good.
definitely.
Someday.
Thank
Okay.
you, Evelyn. Look at the chat. Look at the chat, Evelyn.
There's the chat now.
The chat.
Open this up.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good night.
night.
Good night now.
Good night.
There's me something.
Get out of here. Let's open it.
Zoom.
Dennis, I dialed in late, Dennis, and I was
Sure.
just curious what the Glacier Waterfall scored.
Oh, hold on.
It was high. Good
Uh,
one.
It was up at pretty good elevation, so yeah, it might have been high.
No,
Oh,
Oh.
we're high.
hold on. I'll get there. Glacier Waterfall is 12 points. For all fours.
all right, thank you.
That was it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Everybody.
Good night, folks.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, there's a way to get off of here. You do this, leave the meeting.